Welcome to the first episode of the Wild Podcast. I'm your host, Melina, and I'm super excited to bring you to this podcast where we explore the journeys of successful leaders. I've been passionate about entrepreneurship, digital creativity, and making a difference since I was around 10 years old. Through various projects, I've gained experience in website design, video editing, coding, and even building my own business. Through this podcast, I'm excited to learn from the best in the industry and share their stories with you. So without further ado, let's get started. Our first guest is an Emmy-nominated TV, video, and event director, a messaging strategist, and the president of Spirit Media, which is a marketing company that specializes in producing videos and events. He's collaborated with some of the biggest names in the industry, hosted events for thousands of people, and in 1999, he had a life-changing event that reshaped his whole worldview. For my first guest, I wanted to feature someone who has been a huge source of support through my journey. It is an honor to introduce Mr. Bill Dolan. Mr. Dolan, welcome to the first episode of the Wild Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well and excited to be your first guest.
Okay. So, some of you may be wondering how a 14-year-old knows the head of a marketing agency. I've been active on LinkedIn and I had a video editing webinar, and Mr. Dolan was one of the people who had came and was a part of my webinar. Mr. Dolan, is there anything you would like to say?
Well, yeah, and you did a fabulous job. I will just say that you are a creative prodigy. You have natural gifting and charisma, and you're incredibly intelligent and inquisitive. And so when you called and said, "Would you be my guest?" I said, "Absolutely," because I love meeting people who are about to explode and be famous around the world.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dolan. Mr. Dolan, in the background of your video, there's a suit. Is that an Iron Man suit?
It is an Iron Man suit. The story simply is this. One, because I work in television, entertainment, and like corporate events, sometimes we do stuff where we do character sketches, where we're doing metaphors. And really, Iron Man is a great metaphor for saving the day, being the hero, coming through in times of crisis. And some of our clients do that. So I originally purchased it with that in mind and have used it for corporate events. However, after writing a book a few years ago, I got a call from the Stan Lee Foundation. Now, Stan Lee's the guy that really was the creative genius behind Marvel. And so, what he had always said, and it's the framework behind all his characters, was that inside every flawed human being is a superhero waiting to emerge. In other words, hey, we're all imperfect. We all make mistakes. But in the toughest times, in the times when you really need to show up, inside everyone is the ability to rise up and do something absolutely amazing. If not save the world, you know, do something that makes a difference in the lives of the people around you, even in acts of kindness, acts of love, acts of caring. That's profound in our world. And I love that Stan did that. And so when they called me, they said, "Would you be willing to conduct a workshop and teach us how to create a mission manifesto?" Of course, I said, absolutely, I'd be honored. And then I ended up joining their board and working with them for a while, helping them with a variety of projects. So, long story short, Iron Man is in my office. He stays in my office, and he's there every single day to remind us that no matter how flawed or how many mistakes I make, in times of crisis, all of us are capable of doing amazing things.
Wow, that is amazing, Mr. Dolan. And you said that you worked with some projects. What were some of the projects that you worked on?
Well, a variety of projects. I'll just say that the ones that we were working on with the foundation were in development, so they're kind of secret. In the motion picture industry or even related, you talk about a lot of ideas, but you kind of keep them under the radar because you don't want things to get stolen. But I'll just say this, that the stuff that I was working on was directly related to helping young people embrace STEM and science and technology and engineering and math, and of course the arts as well. And that was a big part of Stan Lee's desire, is to encourage kids to get involved and get activated with their mind and their careers. And so we were doing a lot of things in that space and working with some really cool organizations to even develop programs. Many of those are still in development today. And you might see some of those, coming out in the years to come.
Okay, that's very cool. So, out of them, which one has been your favorite?
Well, that's a tough question, and the reason is because I've worked on so many cool projects, um, so many had the privilege of meeting a lot of different people. I can say that if I look at the totality of my career, I love doing things that have impact. I love to know that the things I'm doing will make a difference in the lives of others. I also love working with people who inspire me and are doing everything they can to rise to the highest level of their gifting. And so when I work with certain corporate leaders, and I've worked with a number of major corporate leaders, and we always talk it here in the United States about Fortune 500 companies or whatever. That's good, but when you're working eye to eye with someone who's having to make major decisions over about tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, you realize the stakes are really high. Working with them and thinking that I can have a voice in their life and help them make great decisions, help them make valuable decisions, help them make ethical decisions is really stirs my heart. It gives me such an incredible honor. I've loved working with, I would say, some of the greatest artists at the prime of their game. For example, I've directed groups like the Black Eyed Peas, or worked with Gwen Stefani, or Avril Lavigne, or Maroon 5, or just a lot of different groups that, because of my artistic background in
Wow.
television, it's fun working with them. Not just because it's cool, not just because it's good music, but I'm working with people that inspire me, like Will I Am of Black Eyed Peas, I think is a genius. And so when I can work with a genius, I mean, deep down, we kind of feel like maybe there's a little genius that'll rub off. Doesn't always work that way, but it inspires you to work with people who are putting in the work. And I mean, really putting in the work. I think when we look at people who've accomplished great things, we'd say maybe, they're famous, or maybe they have a lot of money, or they look really cool. It's true that there's a lot of things that we see in the entertainment world that are really, I would call kind of like a masquerade. It's a mask that people put on. I have to play this role to be famous, and I have to play this role to look this way. But deep inside, many of these artists, including like the Taylor Swifts of the world, they have worked so hard, so hard, and they've often had dreams that have gone back into their childhood. In fact, I was
Yeah.
just reading a, a lot of people in the pop scene know about Dua Lipa, for example. And Dua, she told her parents, "I want to take singing lessons" when she was 9. Now, she not only sang at 9, but then at 15
Mhm.
said, "I want to go to London. I want to perform and I want to work." And her parents, obviously, many parents, if you say, "I'm 15 and I would like to go to London and perform," probably the answer is no. But her parents said yes. And they said yes for really two reasons. Number one, they looked inside her and saw her gifting and this passion, that this was real. It wasn't just a wouldn't it be nice if, or someday it'd be fun to do this. No, this was real. It was a deep passion. And also how mature she was about it. Intensely mature. So mature that they said, with this passion, this gifting, and your maturity, we'll support you. By 18, she had a contract with Warner Brother Records, which eventually led to her singing and doing performances. And you know what some of her first performances were?
What were they?
Dance clubs for 10 people.
Oh, wow.
10 people. And I think that's a lesson when we see people like Will I Am or Dua Lipa or all these different artists, is yeah, they're willing to give their best for 10 people so that they can rise to the occasion of giving their best for 10 million people. Or in the case of Dua Lipa today, billions of people have downloaded her music. So I'm not saying go out and buy her stuff, but I'm saying look at the attributes:
Wow.
passion, gifting, and intense hard work. And this seems to be this
Mhm.
incredible combination that we see. And when I see that, I get to work with it, and I'm brought in as the director to work on a project. I am inspired. It inspires me. And I feel like I have the privilege of what I call multiplying multipliers, helping people that are doing great things do it well, and tell the world how to do it better.
So, as a director, what do you get to do on part of these projects?
Well, as a director, and I'm brought in as a television director, and as a television director, it means I may be working from the idea that it's going to be live television. For example, if we were doing a show and it was the Melina show, and you had a lot of guests. Oh, and by the way, you had some dancers as well, and you had different things that were happening on the set. I might look at you as an artist and say, you know what? I'm going to need 5 cameras or 10 cameras or 20 cameras to cover that show. And I'm going to have to think, what are the angles that I want to get for that? I want to put myself in the eyes of the audience and give them a 360-degree experience of what it's like to be here live. And so I'll break out all those cameras, the angles, the lens, I call it the lensing. In other words, am I a tight shot or a wide shot? Am I moving or am I static? Am I following the dancers? Like, for example, if we were doing a band, I might have 2 or 3 cameras dedicated to the drum kit, and another to the keyboard, and another to the bass player, and maybe a couple more to the guitarist, and maybe some more to the backing vocalist, and others that would be shots of the crowd cheering, or to have a large environmental. So if you can picture all those scenes, if you watched a concert performance and you see it just cut back and forth, you go, wow, I'm seeing all these things. The guy making that decision would be me. That would be what we call in the industry my gig. Is I would that would be my thing. And the same thing happens if I'm doing a corporate event. Corporate events usually don't have lots of musical instruments and dancers and performers or different things like that, but they do have elements that say, how can I help use my gifting to bring people into the live experience?
Yeah.
So that's what I do.
Wow, that's very cool. It's probably a lot of hard work to do that as well, thinking of all the cameras, where the angles are.
It's very fun. It really is. It's and some people have a gift for it
Mhm.
and some people don't. I've worked for a long time to do it, and I absolutely love it. I really do. It's live editing. It's giving a gift to the audience to say, oh, if you could be here, oh, wait, I know how to make you feel like you're here. I'm going to cut these cameras and take you behind the scenes and show you the things that you could never see in a way that I get to help you see and help you experience.
That's very, very cool. So, what do you think out of your whole career, there must have been some main skills that you think would be very important for people like me, like my age, teenagers, that they should focus on developing?
Well, there's really, I'm going to call it 2 sets of skills. The first one are I'm going to call tactical skills, and the other is going to be character skills.
Okay.
For example, I talked about the different musicians and artists I've worked with, and with each one of those, they had tactical skills. For example, if you're interested in getting into media and you want to be a reporter or you want to be a producer or things like that, well, there's skills that go with that. Number one is an interest, a genuine interest in that craft. If you don't have an interest in it, it's going to be hard to stay with it.
Right.
And that would include also language, being more familiar with your own language, sentence structure, learning how to write, and for goodness sakes, not believing that I can just throw everything onto Chat GPT and have AI write it.
Hmm.
And I say that because your brain and your artistic gift is a muscle, and it's a muscle that needs to be used and exercised. So you can use different tools out there to help you perform, but you always want to be using that muscle. So the writing muscle, the thinking muscle, the problem solving muscle. And if you are, in fact, getting into my side of it and saying, I want to get into television, decide what you want to do. Do you want to be in front of the camera or behind the camera? And if you want to be in front of the camera, there are certain skills about presentation and speaking and the ability to be able to carry a conversation or perform in a way that's going to be fun, engaging, and meaningful. The other is if you're behind the scenes, there's the engineering side of it. Crazy engineering. I mean, there's brilliant people behind the scenes that are dealing with cameras and microphones and lighting and what we call signal path and how will this be routed here. So if those are things you're interested, which are more scientific in nature, find out if you have that gifting, find if you have that passion, and then start pursuing that. Education, 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 and practice of that are the gateways to get good at that.
What if you don't have that gift? Is it still easy to pursue, or do you have to like do more work?
I think it's harder. I think it's a lot harder. And I here's what I use as an example. It's not to minimize that some people have gifts and not. It's not a bad thing that some people have certain gifts. We want to celebrate everybody's gifts. For example, when I was in school, one of my best friends was his name was Chris. And when I remember getting an assignment to draw a picture of a horse, and I drew a picture of a horse, and it kind of looked like something you'd find on an ancient cave that was a little rough. You could barely make out the nose, but you saw it had four legs, and you'd say, "Well, look, that's a horse." After you prompted that it was a horse, Chris could understood the way the horse was shaped and the muscles and the flow and the hair and all that. His ability, natural ability, was superior to mine. And I remember thinking then, it didn't dismiss the idea that I could be an artist, but I recognized he had that gift. And it excited me for him. And it made me think, what are my gifts? Because there's a lot of people, especially when you're young, you have so many gifts you don't even know yet. And you don't know that unless you practice it and you get out there and you explore and you're willing to make mistakes. Sometimes you're willing to look silly because sometimes you have to be willing to look silly to go, oh my gosh, I love that. Or I'm not really good at that. Or I'm stronger at this. For example, when I was also directing, I really thought I was going to be a television reporter in front of the camera. So here I'm at television school, and we have to go through all these different labs, and one of the labs is a directing lab. And the directing lab was you get with the cameras, and you have a crew and everything like that. And I was assigned that day to be the director. And something happened on the set where they weren't able to get to the reporter in time, but it was a live show. And I immediately started doing instinctive things. I said, ready to get a two shot on two, take two, ready to three, get a wide shot on three, ready to three, take three, ready to dissolve camera one, go to one. And I started making calls and it just came. It was gifting. And I had no idea I had that. No idea I had that. Now, granted, I was 19. The instructor pulled me aside. He said, I want you to know that you have natural gifting as a director. And other than one other person I can think of, you may be the best director ever go through this university. And he inspired me, absolutely inspired me that I had never considered. Now, at the same time, I realized that I was interested and I had a little bit of a passion. I say a little bit of a passion for being a reporter because I loved media. But when I saw that, I realized that there's people that are really gifted at that I could work hard and
Wow.
maybe get good at, or maybe I could pursue this thing that I'm just naturally gifted. And it was really fun. And I began pursuing that and pursuing that. And that's when the combination of my passion and the recognition of my gifting started to show up. Now, I have to get back to this thing because I'm talking about tactics and things you learn. And I said there's really two fundamental things you learn. There's the tactics, but here's the other one, and it's character. There's a lot of people who have gifting. There's a lot of people who have passion, but they're not willing to put in the work because to truly do incredible things and to become great at your craft, you have to put in the work. You have to put in the hours. You have to find that way where you're willing to put in the work when other people aren't willing to put in the work. And that means also that you're determined, that you have a vision for what that could be and say, what could that be like? And it's okay. In fact, it's really great to dream. And the world wants to say, oh, no, don't dream. That's too crazy. I'd say the people that are doing great things had crazy dreams.
Yeah.
They really did.
Mhm.
And those people that are not doing crazy things might not have had those dreams. I mean, I still pinch myself when I think of the people I get to work with, or even world leaders and meeting them and working with them and having conversations with them, or famous performers and sitting down and having coffee with them.
That's a very, very inspiring story about the way that you started with thinking that you would want to be a reporter and then realizing that you had a passion for producing. So I wanted to ask you, you're the president of Spirit Media. When you're running that business, what are some things that are very important to know about running a business?
Well, running a business can be complex because there's a lot to it, especially if you're the founder and you're the leader of the organization. I would say that running a business starts with some of those same giftings that we talked about if you're going to go into a career. And I call them character giftings. Number one is work ethic, willing to work hard. And because a lot of people think it sounds very exciting to say, oh, I'm a business owner. Guess what? It is exciting, but you're probably going to work a lot harder than if you had a job somewhere. You're going to spend extra hours. You're going to go to bed that night thinking about, what about this? What about that? What about that? And you have to learn a variety of skills because if you're going to run a business, guess what? You probably have to know math and algebra and spreadsheets and things like that. You're going to have to learn about numbers because numbers are the way that
Yes.
you're able to count your expenses and your profits. You're going to have to learn people skills because it means you're going to have to talk to people that are going to be your clients. And you're going to have to hire people to help work with you, whether they're contractors or they're employees. And when you work with different people, you need good
Mhm.
people skills to do that. You're going to have to learn about some of the laws. There's a lot of laws about being in business. And it doesn't mean you have to pretend to be a lawyer, but sometimes you feel that way because every region, every country has different laws about how you can conduct your business. And that's just a little bit of it. You have to be willing to dig into a lot of different subjects. And I was talking about passion and gifting. Well, guess what?
Mhm.
As a business owner, you may have to do a lot of things that aren't your passion. It just goes with it. I don't, for example, I'll be honest with you, I don't like paperwork. I really don't like paperwork.
Mhm.
But today, when we're done, I'm going to be working with our payroll company to run payroll. That means I'm going to make sure my employees are paid. Now, filling out that paperwork and calling them and doing all that stuff, that isn't fun. But guess what? I love my employees and they love getting paid.
Yes.
Go figure, you know? And so, because they love getting paid and I love them, I'm going to do some of the stuff that I don't always enjoy, but because I love the outcome
Mhm.
and I love what it means, and I'm willing to put in the work to do some things that aren't fun so that I have the freedom to do the things that are fun. So that would be a big thing that I would say about what it's like being in business. I would say the other side of the business is going back to that, being willing to dream. Because in business, you actually make something that never existed before. You might be making something that looks similar, but you're making something that never existed before.
Mhm.
And so it requires a certain level of imagination and the willingness to dream. And when you dream, to be able to say, what does that look like? And if I say,
Yes.
what does that look like? Then the next thing you say, well, what will it take to do that? And how long will it take to do that? And what resources do I bring? It makes you think in a much bigger picture. And it's so exciting. And I'll say one of the great rewards of being in business is when you're able to do a business that aligns with your passions
Mhm.
and your gifting, and you start to see these amazing things come out of it. That you get to do the things with the people that you love to do. You get to see the impact you get to have. And whether you want to grow it because you want to make a lot of money and build something exciting, or give to incredible charities and help organizations, help people, whatever that is, when you start seeing that, it's really, really, really exciting.
Wow, that's amazing. And finally, I want to ask, what's the biggest piece of advice of everything that you've said you'd like to give to teenagers and young people who are watching this?
I would probably say, and I've alluded to it already, is that your brain is one of the most powerful miracles in the universe. And you're capable of doing so much more than you can even imagine right now. And when you're young, or even when you're older, like me, and you start to dream, what could I do? We often stop ourselves short because we think, I can't do that. or I could never do that, or that's too crazy. Or you're surrounded by people that said, oh, don't dream too big because they're afraid you're going to hurt your feelings. And I'm going to say, yeah, sometimes you get your feelings hurt. Facing disappointment is a part of taking risks. When you exercise your mind and work hard, the dreams you have aren't about you, Melina, doing something big today. It means that you're in the process of becoming the person who can do it tomorrow. And knowing that you are in the process of preparing yourself into doing amazing things, you're willing to fail, willing to make mistakes, but you believe in what you're doing and you're willing to put in the hard work. That's the difference between those that simply dream and those that actually accomplish their dreams.
Very inspirational, Mr. Dolan. Now we're going to do something a little bit more fun, where basically Mr. Dolan is.
Oh, wait a minute. Are you saying everything we've done up to this point hasn't been fun?
No, no, it has been
Oh,
fun.
boy.
We're going to do something more fun.
Okay.
So basically, I'm going to be doing this continuously in every episode, where I will ask my guest what is one question they would like to give the next guest, and you cannot know who the next guest is. And so, yeah, do you have a mystery question for our next guest?
If I had to ask one of your guests a question that I think would give you a lot of insight into their life, their experience, maybe who their heroes are, I would ask them who in their life has had a profound impact on them. Maybe it was a mentor. Maybe it was someone that just said one thing. For example, in college, when I had that professor tell me, "You're a great director," changed my life. I'll always remember that. Ask them who would that be, and what would you say if you had a chance to see them today? How would you thank them for the impact they had on your life?
Question. I am super excited to see what our next guest will say on that question. Mr. Dolan, thank you very much for being here today. This was an amazing and very insightful conversation that I really enjoyed, and I hope our listeners did too.
I had so much fun. Thank you for having me as your guest. And I'm hoping sometime when you're repeating some of your guests that I could be a guest again.
Yes, for sure, Mr. Dolan. That wraps up the very first episode of the Wild Podcast. To everyone tuning in, remember that facing challenges with a positive mindset and continuously developing your skills are crucial steps towards success. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories and practical advice from our guests.